Start the meeting, please.
Recording in progress.
Okay, I would like to call the meeting to order at 6:10. Can I get someone to make a motion to accept the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Do I only have two on there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, okay. Perfect, thank you. That was unanimous. Perfect. Communications with parents, citizens, and staff. I see there's lots of you online and a few people here as well. If anyone wants to speak to the board, now is the time to do it.
Just wanted to talk briefly.
Yeah, go right ahead, Hannah.
So I came just because as you're looking at this next round of budgets, I wanted to make sure that any, especially when it comes to like specialist teachers like the foreign language program in the elementary school, choices about that have enormous ripples, especially at Neshabie in a really different way, because those are the teachers that cover teacher planning time. And so working on the schedule and being an integrated arts teacher in that group, just want you to be aware that when those programs get cut back, we are in a position where we don't have someone who naturally covers that daily teacher planning period. And it ends up impacting other programs or other people, and we're in a position where we don't really know what the answer is. And specifically, it seems like the answer tends to be that the library program becomes planning time for teachers. So I feel like I need to speak up for my program because that is to the detriment of my students when I can't collaborate directly with their teachers and not there in the library with them, advising them as readers as well.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone online want to speak?
Sure. If possible, I would like to speak regarding the potential changes to the after-school program. I don't know if that's best done now or later on in the meeting when it's on the agenda.
Now is the time to do it, but if you could give me your name and where you're from, that would be great.
Sure. My name is Emma Wilcox. I'm in Pittsburgh, and I'm a parent of a current kindergartner as well as a 3-year-old. And I did submit a letter through the Reach Out program, but I've heard that there is the potential to eliminate the school programs run by the district and bring in an outside organization, namely the Boys and Girls Club. And those programs, after-school programs, as well as preschool, are regulated through the Department of Children and Families. And in reviewing the Department of Children and Families website, the current LEAP program has had 3 site visits by an assessor over the past 3 years, with 3 essentially very minor violations. The Boys and Girls Club programs that are run throughout Rutland County, including Rutland and after-school programs at Rutland Town, Fairhaven, Castleton, and Benson, have received multiple violations across all of their programs, including inappropriate attendance tracking for staff and students, negative method of guidance by staff, staff that have not been cleared to be alone with students being alone with students, multiple students being allowed in a single stall bathroom, staff to student ratios that are above what is allowed, students being released from programs without permission, and staff being aware of student allergies. So as a parent of a child who is a current participant in the LEAP program and has had a great experience, I'm very concerned about bringing in this outside program that does not appear to have a great track record.
Okay. Thank you, Emma. Appreciate that. Anyone else? There's so many of you and none of you want to say anything? Really?
You're not be allowed to speak when the item comes up.
No, this is the time for public comment. I really would like to keep it between the board. So if you have something you'd like to say, Alicia, please feel free.
Yeah, well, so I'm confused on what's going on with Caverly and why isn't the program in Chittenden a private program? So why would they be allowed to use a public building?
So I think you're talking about Fox, the Fox program during the summer this year.
Yes.
So Caverly does not use it during the summer, correct?
Correct, but are you charging this program to use the space?
I do not know that. We haven't even talked about it, so that's
why I asked if I should.
Right, so I mean, you can ask your questions and stay for that portion of the meeting. At this point, I can't answer those questions. We haven't even discussed it as a board, so.
Okay.
Did you have other questions?
No, that's why I asked if I should wait.
Just
till
that one.
the agenda
Okay.
item came up.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, I'm online. I'm Susan Price.
Yep.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, so along with Hannah, I'm over at Neshabie. I definitely wasn't planning on saying anything, so let me collect my thought. But with Hannah, I agree that specials can't be cut, and we really can't cut a teacher. I understand the numbers look like we can cut a teacher, but our kids are a very unique set, and a lot gets taken from Neshabie. And if we lose more people in our building, it is going to be, like Hannah said, it is going to be detrimental to the adults and, most importantly, to the children. I understand numbers do make it look like there can be 2 6th grade classes, but there cannot be 2 6th grade classes. Our school needs a lot of attention given to our children. And I don't know what is going to happen, but I know that adults cannot be cut from our building. We are already bleeding where we are. So I don't know what I can do. I don't know what you can do, but I needed to speak my piece, and that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you for listening.
Of course. Anyone else? I see there's some stuff in the chat.
Yeah, Amanda Clark, sounds like she's echoing what Emma Wilcox said. She's also very happy with LEAP and is very concerned about Boys and Girls Club.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, then we are going to move on. Thank you for everyone for being here. Let's see, reach out reports, as Emma indicated, or I think it was Emma. We did receive a reach out about the LEAP program, and the potential of the Boys and Girls Club taking over. I don't know if we received any others.
Yes, about the budget. But I don't know that they came to OVU. I think those are on the
Okay,
assignments.
yeah, I don't think I saw any for Otter Valley. Okay. All right, then we are gonna move on. Consent agenda. Can I get someone to make a motion?
I move to approve.
Thank you, Natalie. Is there a second? Thank you, Barbara. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, consent agenda passes. Thank you. Presentation, safety update. Moved from our April meeting.
I think
Didn't we have that? I thought Tyler was here and he gave it to us.
He did during that April 9th meeting.
yeah.
Okay.
Couldn't have minutes.
Well, then I'm going to say we're moving on because we saw that the last time we were all together. All right. Monitoring report 2.6, asset protection, that is in your packet. I think it starts on page like 20, maybe a little earlier than that. Anybody have any comments or questions for, actually, we should probably start by taking a motion to.
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Okay,
I'll second.
is there a second? Thank you, Natalie. Any questions, comments, concerns for Kristen about asset protection? Monitoring report 2.6, I noticed that everything was in compliance, everything looked pretty good to me, but there may be questions from board members. Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of asset protection 2.6, and accepting that monitoring report by Kristen, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, all those opposed? Okay, unanimous. All right, next one. Board management delegation, we have 2 monitoring reports for ourselves. The first one is 4.2, which is the board job description. That could be found on page 24, maybe. So we looked at this last May. pretty much it just talks about what our job description is and, how we meet that obligation. So, any changes to this?
I don't know if it's a change, but I did read a thing the other day on like board meetings and school board meetings.
Sure.
And they recommended, there's one thing a site I was on, that every so often you have a meeting where the public can say their piece and we can actually have a conversation about it, not just sit here silent without any kind of back and forth.
Okay.
They said it helped build rapport, so we're trying to figure out how to reach public. Maybe one of those a month or one every, whatever, might be an idea.
So almost like a community forum.
Yeah, where they can come in and say what they want and maybe get a response, not just say
Sure.
their piece and sit down and feel like they accomplished nothing. They might,
Okay.
maybe they'll get an answer, maybe they won't, but it might help
Right.
build a rapport.
That's one of those things where, probably not at a board meeting, but if we were to have,
It could be a separate
community
thing, that's
forum,
what I
but
mean, a separate thing just for that.
Sure.
But we
Alright.
couldn't make any decisions at that meeting.
No, there'd be no.
It's just
deci-
it's
it
just a
would
conversation.
Conversation.
Maybe we have an answer we can say, it's not a definite answer, but, whatever, something we know they don't know.
Okay. I know I would like to figure out how to get more people to community forums, because that seems to be a,
Maybe if they think they're gonna get a response, not just, thank you. That might help, I don't know.
okay. All right. Anything else regarding the board job description? Okay, then we're gonna move on to the next one. The other one is 4.6, board committee principles. Are there any changes to this one? This one specifically talks about our board committees. We have Hawk Hill negotiations, and we did have our task force, which we no longer have at this point in time. We don't usually have committees just because we usually try to discuss everything as a board. So, anything to change or look at there? No?
I just want to point out on section 2,
Yep.
the interpretation that the board should speak as one. That should go for our appeal to the State Board of Education regarding the makeup of the RNSU board as well.
We're gonna talk about that later tonight too. Or, well, actually, we're gonna talk about it at our next meeting. But anyway, yes. Okay, anything else? Oops. Okay, then we're gonna move on. All right, fiscal year 25 budget special election debrief, next steps. As you know, our budget went down on April 30th. It was 1,019 to 683. You spoke a little bit about it at our last meeting. Do you want to echo the same sentiments that what we learned?
I think around the state, the 30 budgets that were defeated the first time, 27 are still defeated, have gone down a second or even a third time. The community demographics of the budgets that are going down don't necessarily mirror or mimic each other, right? They're very different communities around the state. Otter Valley's voter turnout was not bad. Our staff turnout was pretty low, which is too bad. So really wanting to reach out and sort of mobilize the OVU staff members who live in the community. OVU's margin was about the same as last time. Barstow's grew by a decent amount for them, which sort of is unprecedented. There are sort of around the state, there's a lot of folks that say, when you show up to the budget informational meetings or you sort of talk to people, it isn't that I don't support the schools, it's that this is a message to Montpelier, or I can't pay my taxes, right? Like things that are sort of tough to counteract, right? It's tough to tell someone no to that, right?
Yeah, I've been told by several people that they're just voting no because they don't want it to go up. Everything else is going up, I'm voting no if it goes up, period, plain and simple.
And we can't do anything about that CLA,
I know.
which is making it go up even if we had a 0 increase. So, yeah. We do need to talk to our legislators, who apparently are gonna be done by the end of this week, so, I know I did put an email into Peter Conlon and to Stephanie Jerome, regarding this problem, and I have not heard back from them yet. So, do you have something you want to say, Kevin?
No, sorry, I was just
Okay, all right.
stretching.
Okay.
And there was a draft bill, I can't remember what it was, about contingency budgeting, and it was defeated. It's gone, so.
So has the administration looked at all at potential, what the I mean, we knew that we had, before we put out our last budget, we had seen what a 3-cent reduction looked like in our budget. Have you guys had a chance to look at that again?
Yes, we've looked at it initially,
Okay.
to include, certainly what that 3 cent was. But also we're looking at open positions, right? Because teacher contracts, administrator contracts have gone out. But we are looking at open positions. We're looking at really everything that we have the potential to reduce, just as to start the conversation. Again, just like last time, the board sort of needs to give us those parameters. But yes, we had a meeting yesterday for a couple of hours with administrators.
Okay. So we're not ready yet to really discuss in depth anything?
Well, you need to tell us what your.
What we want? I don't know. What I want is to not be here at this juncture. Because anything we do now is going to impact kids, and that's what I don't want to do.
That's what I told everybody who said something to me, but
Yeah.
them voting no.
Right. Right. Is that now we're going to be impacting kids.
So nevertheless, we're in a position where, we had some articulate reasoning for not cutting specific things tonight, and we're going to hear that at these meetings, but the voters are telling us something very different. This was a decisive result. And I don't see any way around that. That the people Brent talked to, occasional people I've heard from, the sentiment that we clearly have to acknowledge is that the voters want us to cut. And we're in a bind now. We should have taken Fernandez's advice earlier about contracts. There's not going to be a good result, and we're just going to have to, accept that, and accept that people are going to be unhappy. And I think the decisiveness of the vote means that we cannot, we have to respond to that with a more significant cut than we were even considering before.
Can I
Oh,
say
go
something?
ahead, yeah.
So I've talked to people as well, and I feel like a lot of it is a misunderstanding of the percent. So people see 12%, and they think that their taxes are going up 12%. And that doesn't correlate, and that perhaps our education outreach, we didn't do a good enough job. I think what people need is not all those words. It's a simple graph that says, this is how much you paid, you're going to pay 5 cents more, this is what it's going to cost. And it's just that. And the percentages is what people get stuck on, is 12%, I'm not paying that. Instead of, well, overall, you're going to pay 5 cents on whatever. I think we need to be more clear. Because, yeah, people don't want to pay more taxes, but they don't want to hurt our kids. So, we got to be really creative here.
And I do think with the and Brenda and I have already sort of talked about the messaging, like sort of shifting the messaging around, but with the legislature being set to end this week, they'll at least set the yield, so Brenda can actually work real numbers, not just sort of theoretical numbers.
Yeah, because I had people tell me, well, I'm going to be paying this much in taxes. And I said, that's ridiculous. That's not what you're going to be paying, because they didn't understand the percent increase. It's really confusing for people.
Yeah, that's for sure, I totally get it.
I don't get it.
Yeah, it's really confusing.
don't
We
know how it
need
all
to
works.
put it in a,
Well,
I think, do you want me to speak or no?
well, I was just gonna say, I mean, when Brenda goes through it, she's giving you all the information,
For us,
which is very
yes.
nice and wonderful.
yes.
However, people were focused on the fact that expenses were going up 12% and not that the fact that our effective tax rate was only going up a nickel. Or
Exactly.
5%.
Yes.
So if essentially the increase we were asking for was a 5% increase.
Right.
And then, of course, the CLA, which we have no control
control.
over, is making it go another, I don't even remember what the percentage is, but anyway, so yeah, so our messaging needs to be different. And we need to get out in front of all of the craziness on Front Porch Forum and the misinformation that we see on Facebook and just what we hear out and about in town. Because there is a lot of misinformation.
Yes.
This is going to sound like a cop-out, but I think it's true this year that there's a lot to blame Montpelier for. We all know that on this board. And it doesn't really help us with the messaging, but it's the truth. And they put us in a terrible position, and as well as all these other school boards across the state. And, they should hear about it from not only from us, but from everybody.
That's the other message I was telling people was, don't complain here at your local board because our hands are tied. We need to get the message out to Montpelier. We need to speak to our legislatures. We need to, do a groundswell up from the local level up to Montpelier, because saying no, just voting no for our budget isn't going to make Montpelier change, right?
Well, and
I really don't think that's going to work. And that's what people are thinking. We'll vote no and Montpelier will get it. Well, I don't think they will.
I will say that I've been thinking about this for a long time, and everyone knows that all of our towns here in our district drop like a rock in their CLA. From 80% to 75%. I think we're all hovering around that 75% CLA, and that's the perfect storm just because of COVID and everybody coming and buying houses
Right.
at ridiculous prices,
Right.
Compared to everybody's grand list. And the more I think about it, I'm going to go on record, and I may be crazy, but I'm pretty sure that because the CLAs have dropped so much, if we're saying that our effective tax rate is $1.26, and yet Brandon is going to be paying $1.70, and whatever the other towns will be paying somewhere around that as well. Where's all that extra money going? From all the other towns and all the other districts, which must be filling up that education fund pretty high, and that we don't necessarily need all that money. Because think about it, the idea is that it was supposed to make it equitable, and I don't think it's equitable anymore. If everybody's CLA is tanking, then we are all sending more money than is necessary to fill the education fund. And I think we all need to send that message to Montpelier that we know that the ed fund has more money in it than was needed, and that they can't look at it and pilfer from it, because that's probably what they're doing. Oh, we got all this extra money. Hey, where'd all that lottery money go? Where's the extra sales tax that's supposed to be going into the ed fund? So I'm going on record, and that is the message that I sent to Stephanie Jerome and to Peter Conlon, and haven't heard back, surprisingly.
Yeah, and I wonder, can we do this? Can we
Oh, yeah, we'll get
draft?
there. Brett, sorry.
Can we draft a template to make available to our townspeople that they can put their name in and then send it to our legislatures? And
We could have a
something that
petition.
makes it easy for people to reach out, because when you say, oh, contact your legislatures, not everybody knows what to do, so.
So Brett, I'm sorry you've had your hand raised so long. Please speak.
No problem. It's been good to listen. I will say that sound quality is terrible. I'm having a hard time hearing you guys, but
You
try
do
to
sound
keep it together.
muffled.
I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I think this does all stem from an issue in Montpelier, one that we're not going to be able to solve. But at the end of the day, I think it was a pretty clear message from the voters how they're feeling about the number that we're putting forward. And I hate to be the one to say this, and if it were up to me, I would not say this, that we need to do this, but I really think that if we want to pass a budget, we need to have a number that's significantly lower. Like right now, we have 26.9 and change. I think that needs to be a 25 and change. That's the type of cut that I'm thinking it's going to take for us to get a budget passed. If we look at what other districts around us have done to get their budget passed, those are not far off from the numbers that they've had to cut. And I think we need to be realistic about what we can cut and where the money could come from, because that's a huge number. But I really don't think any conversation should be off the table at this point, because I just don't think another 1% is going to get it done.
So, Brett, I'm going to give you a little bit of pushback only in the regards that, please remember that we already cut over $500,000 to get to our first budget, so that we would be in line with what Act 127 originally said. And then, of course, the legislature clawed that back. And then we've also cut another $200,000 on top of that. So. Right, 268. So we're like at $750,000 already. So when you say, I mean, so to cut, you're saying to cut another $1 million out of the budget.
Yeah, I mean, what do you want to cut?
And yeah, that's the
What do
other
you want to
question.
cut? Because that's a lot.
Gloria, I am well aware of what I am saying, and I hate that I'm saying it, but a 1% is not going to get something passed.
Brenda has her hand up.
Yeah, Brenda, go ahead, sorry.
So, I'm always challenged in the messaging, and I think one of the things that is missing in our messaging is our per pupil spending and how it compares. And Kristen said it at the informational meeting for the people who were here, that our per pupil spending, which is already $900 below the state average, is only going to go down 90 district passed on town meeting day. And that means they're not being adjusted by this difficulty. So I think that it's important, it's very hard to put $25 million, $26 million, $27 million into context, because none of us live in those worlds, or at least nobody I know. So what does it really mean at that high of a percentage? Percentages are one of the things I find to be the most challenging to explain, because sometimes you can have a small number and it goes up a massive percentage and it's irrelevant in the whole picture. So it is true, our proposed budget was around 11%. The tax rate that we can control was at 5.66%. So we had brought it down enough in the revote to almost be at that 5% protection that Act 127 once provided us. What hurt us is the common level of appraisal, which is another percentage that brings that effective tax rate up. And it's important to know that not everybody in the community is paying based on that. And especially, and I feel for the people who are concerned about how to pay the numbers we've put forward on fixed income or other circumstances. I feel that, I believe it's real, and it may not be real for them, depending on whether they actually pay based on a tax rate or another measure. So I think it's important that our messaging recognizes and puts into context what we're spending and how that looks to our peers, how that looks to the state. And at the end of the day, I'm just going to throw this on my soapbox for a minute. We are the home of the Brigham decision, where we said the intent was that regardless of your grand list, you should be able to provide an adequate education to your students. And so it's sad and challenging, and as Kristen said, none of us think these next rounds of reductions are something we're excited about or offering with, without knowing that they are real consequences.
In regards to Brett's request or thought, to cut another $1 million is essentially 4 cents on the tax rate, because didn't you say 1 cent on the tax rate is 200, or how much, 205,000 or something like that?
205 is approximately 1 cent based on a yield that may have changed.
Right, okay, so you're looking at a 5 cent tax reduction, which would essentially bring us to a flat budget, right? Is my math right?
No, 5 cents. So,
Sorry, I was just doing I just want to be able to explain how
Sorry.
this would look if, based on his proposal. And that's without even figuring out what we would cut, but I just want to know what that,
And contract.
Well, let me ask this, because
go ahead.
go ahead, Brett.
maybe I'm misunderstanding something. So, right, as I'm reading this, our budget for '24 was 24 and change.
I don't have it in front of me.
Yes,
unfortunately.
yes.
Yes, that is correct.
24,174.
So if my math is correct, the number that I threw out is still an increase of like 1.7-ish million dollars. And I should note my math is rarely correct, so.
Well, I think that the ADM, the weighting also changed that too. So based on what we paid this year doesn't equate to what we paid in last year's taxes, doesn't equate to this year's taxes because of the change in the way we weight pupils. We actually gained more pupils this year. So I just want to point that out.
I'm just looking at the total number because.
Right.
And
we can look
that's
at
what
this
people
so many
are
different
doing.
ways to get
Right, well, see
confusing, but
that-
if we can
but
look at
that's-
the total number, am I doing something, I mean, I'm honestly asking, am I doing something wrong when I say that I think it would be like $1.7 million up?
Well, but you have more students, so you have insurances that went up, you have cost of living wages for all the teachers that went up, we have no control over those, so there's part of it. What else is there that's added we don't have control over?
Inflation.
Inflation of
period.
everything, yeah.
So, I mean, there's only so much of it that we can even control anyway. Even if you didn't add anything to it, it's gonna go up probably another million with everything else added on with all the teachers. I mean, all the upgrades or whatever you wanna call them.
Yeah, zero level.
There's
I-
no
Budget is
control
just
over that
not
part of it.
feasible.
I don't think it's feasible, but
It's never feasible.
I think it's important what Natalie said. There isn't a correlation between the percent that the budget goes up and the tax rate. And again, that's why I don't like percentages, because they can be very often misunderstood. I think it's important, you know, if you're looking at, as Lori said, if you're looking at our spending per pupil and how that compares. And actually, in future budgets and in previous budgets, we used to have the warning that said something on the lines of, shall the voters approve 27 million, blah, 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 of in appropriation, which equates to X amount per pupil, which is X percent over or under last year, depending on that. That might be helpful to put into our next warning, because if we had put that into the warning, and that warning is what goes in front of the voters at the ballot box, if we had put that in it, it would read something similar to this. You know, shall the voters approve? I'm just going to do the 3 cent one because for some reason I don't have the 1 cent on here, but shall the voters approve 26,619,000, which is a long-term weighted average per pupil spending of 12,266, which is 6.6% higher than last year. And I think that might be more helpful, and we could even say, which is X difference than the state average. You know, add some benchmarks that help people understand what our students need and what the cost is.
So I think,
Okay. No, go ahead, Natalie, and then I'll call in Fernanda.
that makes sense to me. But I think that there's a lot of people that just, it goes way over their head. And all they want to know is, how much are my tax dollars going to go up for the year? So how can we present it to them? If you own property that's worth $100,000, you're going to pay an additional $100 this year. I think we need to really, really, really dumb it down so that they understand what they're paying. Because some people are feeling like, I can't afford $500 more a year. But if it's only $50 for some, we need to let them know that it's that small.
Unfortunately, though, Natalie, it's not.
I know, but
I mean, unfortunately, if you do that, and presumably you're doing it after the CLA, per 100,000, we've already told them that. If your house is valued at 100,000, and with all due respect, I'm not gonna pick Goshen because they're used to being an anomaly, but if I pick our biggest town in Brandon, you'll pay $290 per 100. So if you have a $400,000 house, you'll pay $290 times 4.
okay, so, but if you're in a certain tax bracket, you're going to not have to pay that much, right?
So you can figure out your, so
we
anybody's prebate or their payment towards their property taxes from the state, everybody can figure that out already. There's a Excel spreadsheet online, and most if your return is prepared by a tax practitioner such as myself, I've already given you that number, and you know it.
But
And it's based on last
Would it
year.
make sense to put it right there so people can see it and
We
remind them?
did put it in the budget information meeting, like we put it in all that.
I mean, like in a chart and say, so you paid this last year and you're gonna be paying this
Yeah,
year.
because it's based on every individual's household income.
I mean,
Yeah.
There's
So,
too
all
many
right, so
variables.
let's let Fernanda
Make a
talk,
chart.
and we can maybe come back to that. Fernanda?
Well, so we're all between a rock and a hard place, and this is not a comfortable place. I agree with information and how to make this transparent individually. So there is that adjustment, income adjustment, and how do we get people to understand and see what their actual is gonna be? Is there a way, is there a calculator we can create? Is there a way that we can sit in a street corner and say, put in your information and this is what you're gonna be paying? That's one thing. We know it's gonna be higher because of the CLA, and that the CLA is out of our control. So either we stand by what we have in our budget and say, this is what we're presenting, with more explanation to try to make it more palatable for people, and understanding that things have to change at Montpelier for us to be able to do this differently. I'm just not willing right now to further cut direct student services, things that are going to impact the day-to-day situation of our kids, a classroom, putting a more inferior after-school program into place, things that are really impacting those kids. I'm just not willing to go there. And if we're gonna need to cut, then we need to look at other positions. I'm not willing to just go with the recommendations right now. I wanna put it all on the table. Because we can't just assume that it's gonna be okay by taking away things that that we have put into place in order to support students and student learning. So I don't know where to go with this. I understand, I would like to be able to convince people that what we presented is what we need, and that in 62% of the cases to 72% of the cases, it's not gonna be what it looks like right now. It's not the set amount that you plug in, because it's gonna be adjusted. However, we know it's not gonna be adjusted enough. So how do we get that message across, and how do we help people be able to support us through this process while we try to change other things? I don't know, right? But it's just, we can't keep like taking this and taking that and reducing this class to make this happen. I think we need to look at other places. We need to look at administrative places. We need to look at other things that we're doing to see how we can reduce. The state is looking at a reduction of superintendents. We need to look at a reduction of our administrative costs, I think, in order to be able to really have an impact if what we're looking for is a significant reduction.
That is
I
a message
don't
I
see how
also
we're
got,
gonna do it
yes.
with bits and pieces. You know, and it just, that's kind of where my head is right now. I would like to try to see about convincing people with what we have. But if you really want to cut, you know, $1 million from the budget, we're going to have to look elsewhere too.
Okay.
Brett has his hand raised again too.
Barbara, you haven't said anything yet, so I'm gonna let you go.
Oh, thank you. So I agree very much with what Natalie is saying, and I will even throw myself out there as an example of someone who is on this board and has been for 7 years, and I still do not understand the budget. I do not. I could not explain it to someone. Please, I'm sorry, I have other good qualities, but that I cannot do.
That's okay.
If I were not on this board, I would absolutely have no clue. If I were voting for it, I would simply vote because I always vote for school budgets because, you know, I do. That's just me. But you're right. And, you know, I think that people have so much to think about and so much to worry about. If they hear from a trusted friend who says, oh, you know, this is really high and I'm not going to vote for it, that's maybe all it takes for them to say, I'm not voting for it either. They're not looking at the CLA. I don't know, do a lot of people outside of this room understand it? I don't think I would if I weren't in this room. And I'm just saying, we might be overestimating how much attention people pay to those specific things. And what we do need to do then is say, okay, just like you were saying, message it without reference, if we can help it, to abbreviations people might not understand or complex math they won't understand. I know that we can't I'm not saying misrepresent, I'm just saying make it as simple as possible and transparent so that people who are saying no will get a better message and be able to see that it's not as bad as it's sounding anecdotally. I mean, I don't know if I'm making sense, but I really do think the messaging is important and it needs to be simpler. And I echo what Fernanda was saying in that I have gotten many people giving me feedback that if further cuts have to happen, we have to look elsewhere. Administratively, not cutting things that are student-facing, directly student-facing in the classroom, after-school programs.
Okay. All right. Brett, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I hate to say this, and again, I know I'm being the bad guy in this conversation a little bit because I know nobody wants to see $1 million cut for a kid. I feel that we as a board failed twice at this point because I don't think we were listening to our people. And clearly, even as we talk now, there's a wide variety of opinions on what the right answer is. And I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. And in an effort to kind of move the conversation along, I think I would like to talk about doing things like more frequent meetings, community forums. How do we get the message for what the people do want, rather than sitting here speculating about it? Because what we do know for a fact is that less than 40% of our voters approved our budget. So we weren't exactly close. I would say we didn't just miss the mark, we missed the target. And I think those are the types of things that we should be talking about because I don't feel like we're in a position to speak for our voters right now. And I would like to be in that position. I would like to understand. I would like to give everyone a chance to speak and then have these conversations.
But they won't come here to speak. I told everybody who asked me, I told them come here and ask questions. There ain't a one of them here, not a one. I'm an extremist. I say we cut all the school buses have them bring their own kids to school. Maybe that'll have an impact on them. They gotta bring their own kids to school, they'll understand that's what it takes to get the budget cut. That's the kind of things you gotta take away. They all got cars. They can carpool.
Fernanda?
I think we have to be careful because only a third of the budget is voted by families. A lot of the people who vote for a budget do not have children in school.
Or never did.
They're not the ones who are going to suffer from the consequences of cutting children's programs or services. So that's another piece. And I don't want to take away from the reality that people with a fixed income, retired people with a fixed income, or people who live within certain, poverty frames, that this isn't too much of an ask. It is, but we need to make it worth their while to understand that this is where we are. We need to be able to get through this, because it's only a percentage, a very small. It's not even half of our communities in general that have children in schools.
Kevin?
Like everybody else on the board, I think, I would far rather be talking about the messaging of selling a bond issue to build a new school for middle school, for all the improvements we all know we need in this district, and that's not going to happen. And yeah, this does go back to the Brigham decision, and what we're seeing is the silent but effective repeal of the Brigham decision, and that means that poor districts like ours are bearing the brunt of it. It's unfair, it's inequitable, we all know it, but it's the reality. I also agree that the needs of the children in our district mean that we should be talking about more ways to help them and reach them than cutting back on, potentially cutting back on student services. The real messaging, though, is not the messaging that we may or may not be able to send to people, and we've gone over. It's incredibly confusing. The messaging is coming to us, and the messaging is that more than 60% of our voters voted no. For whatever their reasoning, they don't feel like they can afford it, and we have to respond to that. So I want to agree with what Fernanda said. We're going to have to cut. We can't pretend that if we message it better and trim another 1% or something that people are going to come around. I don't think they will. I don't think we need community forums to have learned that lesson. We tried it and it failed miserably. So we have to cut. And I think Fernanda hit the most important point, that it has to be administrative, and that means the RNESU board, and this came up in the RNESU meeting, the RNESU board has to cut that budget. That's 20% of our total. This board can't do anything about that, but that's a message we need to send to RNESU, and that's, I think, is the only avenue we've got without severely hurting our students.
Okay, so to your point, Brett, about having more meetings, the RNESU board meets again next Wednesday, where we will be talking budget. So there's no sense in meeting prior to next Wednesday in regards to an OVUU budget until RNESU has had a chance to look at their budget. So I don't, go ahead.
Unless we're trying to do a community forum.
Well, I suppose. There is a survey that is being put together in the works to send out to ask people what their, how do I voice it?
Basically what their priorities are.
Right, what their priorities are for the budget. So I think that might actually get you more information than a forum where only 6 people show up.
Where is the survey being sent to?
Well, it hasn't been sent yet. It's gonna be sent to all community members, all parents, students. Well, not students, only voters. So, so anyway,
We already know what the answers are going to be. We're going to get
Yeah.
responses back that say, student services are critical, please don't cut them, my child is in this program or other, we can't cut that, we need to support our teachers. We're going to get those responses. We all agree with those responses already. We may get some responses that say, well, I don't care, just cut it. But we're also going to not hear from the people we don't hear from that Brent was talking about, and they're voting. So, sure, let's go ahead with the survey, but I don't think it's going to change the dynamic or the formula.
Are we able to get a list of the people who voted?
we already have the voter checklists, actually.
So,
What we found was that a lot of our teachers did not vote, which kind of is.
who's voting? I mean, who's voting? So,
How do we know if our teachers voted or not? Why?
because we have the
Because
list.
we have the voter checklists.
So, do we need to go to the senior center?
Why are we looking at that? That's not right.
Well, we're looking at everything, but that is one of the things that came out of looking over the voter checklists is who did or did not vote, and some of it is our staff. A lot of our staff did not vote. I mean, it's right there in black and white.
Our staff are also taxpayers, right? I mean, they're facing the same financial challenges as everybody else.
I'm
They
just
did
saying
not
that
vote.
it's not that they voted no, it's that they didn't vote at all.
And isn't that what you would do if you felt torn?
No?
No.
Brett's right, it doesn't matter why they didn't
I'm
vote.
not sure I agree with
Right,
that.
so, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is, who voted no, those are the people we need to be reaching out to.
You need to immobilize a yes vote. That's what you need to do. The no vote has mobilized. We need to mobilize a yes contingency. That's what
Right.
you need.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, where should we be going? Instead of having them come to us, where do we need to go? Where do we need to disseminate the information? Not where we're normally doing it, obviously, because those people are coming and voting, except our staff and employees. But, I don't know, do we go to the senior center? Do we go to events that are happening around town? I don't know, but I think that's worth looking at and understanding who
I think
is.
we've been very silent, actually, in the last couple of votes that we had. We didn't put anything in the paper other than what the paper wrote for, based on their own violations. We didn't put anything on Front Porch Forum. We haven't used social media really, other than to say, please vote. But we're also not supposed to try and sway.
We can't tell people how to
Right,
vote.
you can't tell people how to vote, but we can
Give them information.
we can get them information, yes.
Well, to be clear, you can't use taxpayer dollars to tell them how to vote. You as individuals who believe in the budget.
I can go knock on someone's
and
door.
should
Sure.
be telling your friends how you would hope they would vote. But
Yeah.
as a board, you cannot.
Right.
We could have can you have signs that say, we love our schools or support our schools? Is that telling people how to vote, or is that just a positive school message that conveniently would be timed around a vote? You know what I mean?
I think Lori said it right. We need to mobilize the yes vote.
Yeah, so. that
So
would be-
she's asking if we can have signs that say, please vote yes, or,
You
As an
can
individual.
have
I don't mean-
signs
no, I
on
mean
your
like-
lawn that says that,
We
on
can't have
your
them at our
neighbor's
schools.
lawn. We can't pay for that. You have to pay for it.
didn't the associations have those one year though? They had yes, please vote.
They
Yes.
did.
Well, and I was saying, could it say, we love our schools, or we support our schools, not vote yes, like a different message that is not telling someone how to vote, it's messaging awareness of.
I saw a handmade sign that said exactly that as I drove here.
I did
Yeah.
too.
saw a handmade sign, what?
on someone's lawn saying that.
Yeah, yeah. I probably saw the same sign. But I also had somebody who said that another town that was facing a budget revote had, it sounded like they had signs made.
Yeah, so they would be the friends of the school district who would have funded it, not the school
Okay.
district.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
PTO.
Yes.
The PTOs,
Sometimes
the
unions.
associations,
association.
yeah,
Okay,
teacher
so-
associations.
Okay, so we have, I mean, those things do exist in our district that might, okay.
So kind of to Natalie's point, maybe a school board member going to a PTO meeting isn't a bad idea.
You need one who can explain it, though. You volunteering?
I don't think we need to explain the CLA or anything else. It's, here's the
Explain
budget.
questions. They're gonna have questions I can't answer. That's all I'm saying. People who ask me questions, I'm like, dude,
I just don't think we get the people at the PTO meetings either, right? It's the PTO board, and that's about it.
But we might go to them and say, hey, would you guys like to?
Brett has his hand raised again, or he didn't put it down.
Brett, do you have another question, or?
Question? No. Well, okay. I guess there is a question in there, right? Because I think I'll start with a comment, which is that to this point, we have, as a board, haven't been united on a budget. I think maybe the sweet spot is the budget that we all kind of don't like, but all support because we know that it's for the better of the district. So I would like us to try to come somewhere where we can all agree. And I know that that's, you know, I'm not saying we should support it if we don't agree with it, but the point is that we should all be uncomfortable with what's happening with the budget, because I think that's just the reality of where we're at. And I guess the question that I have is, it sounded like at the beginning of all this, Kristen was looking for some guidance. So we should try to focus on giving her that, and then we can worry about the messaging and how do we get the proper number of yes votes later.
Well, I think we've already done some of that. You know, the thing that I keep hearing is admin. I think we've all heard, you know, before cutting anything related to kids, please look at the administrative level and see if there's anything we can do there. And I think that, you know,
Are we looking for a number?
well, I mean, you gave the worst case number, I think. I would hate to even get close to your number, to be completely honest, but you have given a worst case number. I don't know what everybody else is feeling, but you know, if 1% is 205 or whatever it is, you know, how much more do we think we have to go to appease the voters? I don't know. I mean, is it cutting admin if that's what we keep hearing? So if we cut admin, everybody would be happy. So if we cut 2 admin positions to the tune of $200,000, would everybody be happy and vote yes? Or is it that they want 500,000 cut out of the budget? And I don't know that. I don't know what the magic number is. Yeah, Brent.
I thought in the last meeting we had said that we went with the 1%, and if that didn't work, our next step was a 3 cent or whatever.
Well, that was the other.
I mean, if that's the
option at
next
the time.
step, I guess that's the next number, because that's what we all kind of decided, that's what we were thinking about doing, as far as I was understood.
I kind of feel the same, but I'd like to relook at what we remove. And
I don't think we had,
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you had a total list.
we did have a list, and I'm looking
Was
at
there?
it, and, yeah, I don't want to get I don't want to get rid of classroom teachers, you know.
Maybe we hit that number a
And-
different
and-
way.
I mean, I know at the college a couple of years ago, the highest admin took a 25% pay cut. Is it something that we can do? I know people don't want to hear that, but instead of getting rid of people, I don't know.
I don't know if we have that ability since contracts have gone out already.
Our staff, admins, contracts?
Admin contracts also.
Admins are contracts.
April 1st.
So Brett said 1 million. I don't even know how he'd get there. I'm sorry, that makes me shudder. I just don't know how he'd get there.
Well, 1 million from what? Like, from where you're at today, or from the first budget, right? Like,
Oh, well, all right,
It's
so,
nice to know.
so Brett, I think Brett is looking from last year that he only wants us to go up.
I want to take last year's number and add 5% to it and be close to that. On the
Okay.
high side, but close to it. That's what I think. But,
As far as expenses go, that's what you're talking about.
yep.
Okay. So what's that number, Brenda, unless you're not crunching numbers over
I'm
there?
doing it.
Okay.
She's actually,
Sorry.
She's actually.
I know.
She's applying for other
I know,
jobs.
I know, right? I know, yeah.
You're applying for other jobs. He's on Indeed right now.
LinkedIn.
We're not gonna just not have a superintendent, we're not gonna have any admin.
Think of the money we save, yep.
Yep. Are you gonna be the new secretary for the school district?
Oh, sure, I'm already a clerk, we all know how much
So
I
that's,
shine at that, so.
that's 1.2 million beyond the 3 cents.
Beyond the 3 cent reduction?
Yes.
Wow.
And the 3 cents was 628,000.
So that's almost like
Almost
$1.8 million.
I mean, that is,
Yeah, we can't.
that's transportation, that's all athletics, that's all extracurriculars, that's, you can
Yeah.
cut as many administrators as you want.
So,
You're
well,
not
yes,
getting to that
I got
number.
a chain for the
We'll have
front door.
football lights, but we're not gonna have any football.
Yeah, oh, yeah, there you go, just present that.
Just
and
so
see
you
how that
know.
flies.
Lights will look good down there.
So just so everybody knows, I struggled immensely when I came to that 1 million, right? That's an awful number, and I hope we don't get there, but I think we need to be realistic with expectations.
So did you hear what the 5% is? That's 1.8 million.
5%'s not realistic in this economy, though.
It doesn't even match CPI.
Nope.
Yeah. What is CPI?
Well,
Consumer price index.
Yeah.
No, what was the percentage? I thought it was 3.2 or something.
it was, but the year before it was 8.
Was 8.
And the year before that it was 6, and our budgets haven't kept any of those.
Right.
Right.
That's why I'm like,
What if it was
5%
eight? What if it was
is,
the same as last year?
Got 8% increase instead of.
You mean an
5%.
8% increase instead of 5%? You're still looking at a big number. It really doesn't.
but we've done 268.
I mean, so it's actually gonna be hard to get the number. It's probably easier to say, here are all of the things we still have within our power to reduce.
Okay.
Most of them, by the way, are ugly, right? Because you've got teachers who didn't sign contracts, so those positions can be cut, right? Like, those are the sort of, at this point in the school year, those are the sort of things that we're talking about. So what we can share with you, obviously RNESU is a separate thing, and if RNESU decides to open and make reductions, which is where a lot of administrators sit, then that would obviously impact your assessment, and that would sort of move the needle. But sort of all we can do is all we can do, and then you can sort of make the decisions from there. And I would also remind people that we did cut 2 administrators coming into the first budget. And I'm sort of on my way out, so I don't have a horse in the race, but I think it's also important to note that last year, this board heard several different complaints from families and parents and kids around safety, around things that needed to be better, that we specifically added additional administrative presence to make a difference. And it has, right? So we're now to the point where people are like, oh, I don't need them anymore. Trust me, you're going to, right? You're going to on the other end, especially if you start reducing classroom teachers, right? Because it's important to remember, teachers, interventionists, Hannah Field, those are very student-facing positions, but you forget how student-facing administrators are when hits the fan, right? Like So just sort of wanted to throw that little plug out there. So what we have been working on are, here are the things that on May 7th are still within our power to reduce at this point. And we can come back to you again after RNESU meets and say, not necessarily naming people or positions, but here are the levels of reductions that we can make. And we can also sort of on the other end share with you what the impact will be if you make those decisions, right? Like, so to Hannah Field's point, if you cut elementary Spanish, which our elementary Spanish, the one lone Spanish teacher we have left has resigned. So that's an open spot. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a ripple, right? So just because there's a vacancy doesn't mean that if we don't fill it, there won't be an impact. Because we also want to make sure that you all have the information to make, because to Kevin's point a while ago, the people who show up are showing up hard to fight for what is important to them, right? But then there's going to be a whole slew of people after we warn the budget that are like, oh wait, I saw this was reduced and I want, and it's never ending, right? People have different values. Your budget is a presentation of your values. It's just going to happen. And back to Brenda's point, the hardest part in my opinion is that 90 budgets in Vermont passed. Montpelier's gotten the message. They don't care, right? Are they looking at making changes for future years? Yes, but at this point, 90 budgets have passed. The 27 that haven't passed, every time we vote down a budget, we are increasing inequity for RNESU, OVUHS students from the 90 that have passed. We're only actually making an impact for the kids that are sitting in our seat today. Montpelier can't do anything for us at this point. So that's the hard part, right? And also, I'm a taxpayer. I live in Vermont. My husband complains louder to, and he's probably on front porch for him right now. Who's the idiot superintendent? Someone get rid of her, right? Like this is just sort of the reality. Like that's, it's hard. And you can't really say to someone, oh no, support the schools. Don't worry about your taxes, right? Like that's just hard.
So to get to what Brent said about, we did the 1, let's try the 3. This is my fear, and this is just me with my finger in the air, so, take it for what it's worth. But I had more than one person come up to me and say they were insulted that the number hadn't changed much, that they looked at the last year, this budget, and then the new one, and it seemed like a tiny amount of money, and that was it. That's all they needed to say. They were going to vote no. We are in a position, this is what my fear is now. We're in a position where some people have felt insulted by the 1% cut, and they're doing what they do on Facebook or whatever, telling their friends, the school board insulted us, and we have to counter that impression. And I think the only way to do it is with cuts.
Is to give in?
Yeah,
people who
I
are
don't
saying
agree
we're-
because I've talked to those people who told me it was an insult. And when I communicated what was happening, what we would lose, all the information, they were like, oh, well, I didn't know that. I didn't understand that. I didn't know that's what would happen and that. So, I think some people were insulted, but people can change their point of view too. That's why I feel like information is really, really, really important. Really important, because these are reasonable people, right? We got a handful who are not reasonable, and they're always just going to vote no. But I think that for the most part, the people in our community are reasonable and they want to help. I don't want to think that everybody's just bad and negative and no, and they're insulted. I don't know. I think education's really important.
I agree with all of that.
Communication.
And I agree about the quality of people. Maybe I was just burned by the Brandon budget thing of 5 or 7 years ago, whenever it was, where it was 6 or 7 no votes before it got resolved. But that's my fear.
I'm not saying, I do think we maybe need to do a couple more cuts, but I don't want to pick something right now. I would like to see everything that's on the table. This is what we this is what we can cut.
Well, yeah, we weren't going to decide it tonight.
Right.
Tonight,
but,
we're
I
just
mean,
really talking,
you know,
but yes.
Kristen's asking for, guidance.
Well, we have to see what RNESU is going to do first, right?
I just want to
if they're gonna
see,
get rid of
here's
any-
everything that is It's not
And I
even-
think she
it's-
said that that's what they were gonna do.
That's practical, and
So,
Well, it doesn't mean that it's practical. It means that it is
It's-
available.
it's
Now,
available.
Remember that we've already reduced how many from the first
Yeah.
500? And am I making that number up?
nope.
No, you're right.
Excellent.
And
So we've
yeah.
already reduced that 500. It isn't that these are reasonable and they're in the current upcoming list. I don't know that there's a single thing on that list that makes me happy besides my salary. So I think that that's the hard part. So what
Yes.
we can present to you all is here are the things that
That's
on
the
May
administrator
7th.
we're getting rid
That's
of.
what, I am the administrator, we are tanking. That these are the things that on May 7th, we still have the ability to change.
What about facilities?
You
Like,
wanna shut the heat off or electricity?
I don't know, maybe, right? Didn't some communities do that and there was no school for a day, to save costs? Do we need to be creative about some of our facilities and maintenance and, I don't know, because 2 million's a lot, so.
Well, I think you've heard your marching orders, everything that
come
you
back.
can and can't, everything that is still available. And then,
Your own TP.
and then we'll see what we can do from there.
I mean, I'll make my kids wear a hoodie and sweat,
We have to maintain a certain temperature. We can't say, okay, everybody wear
They
hat
wear
and mittens.
shorts all winter.
And the
15.
optics of that, right? We're keeping all of our administrators, but we're freezing out small
That's
children.
right, yeah. That's right.
I mean, on top,
I'm gonna pass
in
the-
addition.
Nobody above 4th grade wears pants anyway.
I know, right? They're all wearing shorts.
That's what I mean, they're all wearing shorts, so.
All right, so we will
already
talk,
too hot.
we will come back, as a board in 2 weeks and really look at that.
Oh, Brett, does he have his hand again?
No, he doesn't. He just doesn't know how to put it down.
I put it up again, what are you talking about?
Did you really
I know how to use Zoom.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, then what's your question?
It's not a question. I agree that I think our voters generally are pretty reasonable, but, I've talked to some parents who in the past I never would have expected to ever not support a budget, and I think people are just being realistic, that they don't have any more money to give.
Yeah.
When it comes down to paying your taxes or buying groceries, I don't know what we expect. People are suffering right now with inflation and interest rates and the cost of everything, and this sucks. I hate every second of it. I don't want to be having this conversation at all, but I think we're headed in the right direction. It's just painful.
Yep. Okay. All right. 2 weeks. We'll see what that list looks like. God help us. Next thing is board vacancies. So, as we all know, we need 5 members on our board. We have been stalling to appoint anyone because we don't have an approved budget. Because we are slowing this budget down, or this next budget down a little bit, we are going to entertain letters of interest to be on the board, and then we're going to put all of those names on the ballot. So you do not need to get signatures. You just need to tell me that you're going to send your letter to either me or Melinda at central office. And you need to tell us what position you're looking at. So we have a Brandon rep, Leicester rep, Pittsford rep, Whiting rep, and an at-large rep that are needed. What you will have to do, though, is that if you get elected this time, you will have to run for your position again next March. So it's not like you're getting, Whiting has a 3-year term. You're not on for 3 years. You're on for a year, and then you've got to rerun. Okay? Yeah. So, anyway, and I already do have some letters of interest. I will reach out to those people to see if they're still interested. But for anybody who knows anybody in any of these towns, or anybody who lives in any of our towns who wants to be at large, please have them send their request in writing to either Melinda Piper or myself, and we will get you on the ballot.
So we can just give them the email?
Yeah, they can just have my email, it's fine. And I don't think we have a cutoff until we actually print the ballot.
You don't have a cutoff until you set a date.
Yeah, all right. So we'll give you a cutoff when we set a date, which hopefully will be in 2 weeks. Okay? All right. Is everybody okay with that? I just kind of made that decision myself, but I figured you'd all be good with it. Because it's hard enough to get a quorum as it is, and I don't want to pick. I want everybody else to pick. So, okay. Moving on. Consideration. Option to use tabulators for all election actions. So this is here because, as you know, during the first election, we used tabulators. The tabulators are from the state of Vermont. We can run all of the ballots through them, and they tell us how many yeses, nos, and whatever else. However, if we have revotes, then that tabulator requires us to pay $500 to set it up. Or we can just hand count, which is what we did this last revote.
But if you're adding names.
But if you're adding names, a tabulator might be fun or not. So
Would that be $500 per town?
no, it's $500 per tabulator. So it's just once, right? Because
Yeah,
we commingle.
just one tab.
Right,
Bring
yeah,
them
we
all
just
in-
use
bring
one.
them all into the
Yeah.
central.
Okay. So the question is do you want to have that option to use tabulators for all election actions going forward? And I would like to ask Charlene what she thinks because she knows how those tabulators work.
They're a nightmare.
They're a nightmare. So you would rather hand count?
Well, with all of the
Board names.
board names, that would be a long night because you have to.
You have to count first and then you have to count again.
everyone. Yes. So
Okay.
you'd have to have several people there.
Sure.
My son did it the last time. He was there.
Oh, yep.
So we could get student volunteers.
It's up to
You
you.
don't, you just have to, you just have to agree that you could. This doesn't
Okay.
mean that you have to. So you could
Alright.
agree, we can, if we ever choose to, and at your upcoming election say, we don't want to. But you need an actual agenda item that addresses it, or you can't ever use it for revotes. If that makes sense.
Yes, so. Is it for a
I
contract?
guess we
or-
need a motion.
So we always use tabulators for the regular vote.
Right, but that is our,
Done at the same time as the town.
right, so we don't pay for that. The town pays for it? Or do we pay for that?
No, we pay for the
We pay for it.
Oh,
We pay for it.
darn.
So this is about statute, like this
Yeah.
is not, this is.
Okay.
So we're voting to have the option to have
You don't even vote. You
tabulators,
don't
should
even
we
need a
want
motion.
them?
You just need it on the, you need to have sort of agreed
Oh.
casually that you can use it.
So-
You can make a motion.
Does this mean that if we, this is just from the conversations, when I was voting, I asked the people who were working the election, and they said, oh, yes, a yea or nay vote is easy, it's fast, no problem with that, but it gets more complicated with names on the ballot and all these other things. So would we be saying that from henceforth, we'll be using tabulators unless we say no, or?
No.
No,
Okay.
we'd have the
You
option
decide
every
every
time.
time.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Except for the annual meeting.
Yes.
okay.
And you have 5 openings,
Right.
Right.
5 board openings, yeah.
and all of them will be on the ballot.
Well, in this particular case, I think it would be easier on the volunteers, and tell your son thank you, that they get the tabulator, I would assume.
I mean, we're just talking about having the option for it.
Just the option. We're
I
not
think-
really saying anything
right,
about
right.
this particular vote. We're just
Sure,
saying
why
going
not?
forward.
Yeah,
right.
sure.
If I can interject yes and no, at some point when you pick a date,
You do have to
Yeah.
say for
if,
that.
Right.
if you need to do the tabulator, you can't pick it as slowly as the statute will allow you to.
30
Okay.
days.
Because it's gonna take us more time to get the tabulator, to get the ballot printed, to get it, whatever.
By
they-
statute, you needed to have agreed as a board, it needed to have shown up in an agenda 30 days before your vote that you would want to use it in a special election. So if you have the conversation today, you can use it in perpetuity if you choose to,
Okay,
Or not.
or not.
or not.
Except at your annual.
All right. So are we good with that?
Meaning we have to use it at the annual?
Yes.
We
Yes.
always use it at the annual meeting, yes.
This is only for special elections.
Right.
This
Are
is
we-
harder than the budget.
I know, right? God.
Oh, no, I know it is.
Are we using a tabulator or not?
Are we signing a contract?
Brett, do you have anything to add?
All right, so is everybody okay with using the tabulator if we want to? Yes, yes? Yes, okay, thank you, all right. Whew, all right, after-school programming, Boys and Girls Club. Brenda, this is you.
Well, it's not really Brenda, just so you know.
I thought it was.
It is.
Okay.
So, it's not. So we have had the pleasure of having 3 really wonderful after-school programs. One at Neshabie, one at Lothrop, and one at Kids Club. And the board and the community have been supportive by establishing an after-school fund. What we are struggling with is we are seeing the amount that the board subsidizes these programs for in the after-school fund has been going up at an unsustainable rate. So, for example, in '21, the board subsidy for the programs was $81,000. In '22, it was $109,000, and in '23, it was $142,000. So we have really wonderful programs, and they're not sustainable as they are designed right now. So we began looking at what options we might have. Oh, and so in addition to that, we had a wonderful long-term director retiring.
Yep.
We went out for her replacement twice. And on the second round, we found another wonderful person who came on board. And at the same time as looking for a director, we realized we did not have the administrative capacity to oversee all of these programs and the director, nor did we have, we're still struggling with the finances. So we also talked to third-party vendors about what they might be able to do or not. We interviewed, Debbie and I interviewed Healthy Kids, which is a vendor from New York that has a model, and Boys and Girls Club. Boys and Girls Club has expanded their programs. They started at Slate Valley. They are now in Greater Rutland. And they were interested in coming to our programs. We have 3 existing programs, of which nobody in those programs currently is employed with a director's license or the capabilities of being a director or the interest in becoming a director. So just to kind of tell you where we're at, we wrote a message to our staff. We're writing to our after-school and summer program staff to share information on our programs. We are devoted to the continuation of the after-school and summer programs, but have been struggling with our administrative capacity to oversee these programs. We're proud of the programming we've built over the years, and it has been multiple years. I think LEAP was the first one, and I think it's going on 20-plus years. And are thankful the board has financially subsidized and supported these programs. However, we are sensitive to the reality that the programs as designed are currently not financially sustainable. We therefore began conversations with 2 organizations to evaluate what and or how we can make our programs sustainable, both in administrative support and financially. The Boys and Girls Club, with their name recognition and fundraising capabilities, looks to be the most solid option because Healthy Kids told us no. They have expanded their programs from Slate Valley to Greater Rutland and are eager to partner with Otter Valley. We're currently reviewing their policies and procedures, and we are bringing it to you to talk about whether you would like us to move forward with a partnership with the Boys and Girls Club. They would begin a partnership in August of 2024. We would continue to run our summer program, 4-week summer program this year.
Brett put a question in the chat. Let me ask.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
What has driven the cost upwards? Don't we charge for after-school services? And what would be the impact for special needs students?
Those are really good questions, and frankly, they are one of the reasons why Debbie and I, the last question is one of the reasons Debbie and I were not heartbroken when Healthy Kids kind of backed out of the arrangement, because it was important for us that we never discriminate against special needs students. What's driven up the cost? So the things that has driven up the cost is management and follow through on payments. We have parents who just don't pay. We don't have the financial, the administrative capacity. And it is always extremely uncomfortable for school staff to say, hey, you can't come if you don't pay. We've not had any principals say, I'll take that on. I'm interested in that job. And we're finding revenues are just not keeping up with staffing. I think our programs are often overstaffed as well. And again, when you're overstaffed, your programs are less efficient. So we do have licensed programs. Licensing dictates the staffing complements that we need. It also dictates, all of the safety mechanisms that Ms. Wilcox had talked about earlier. And we are proud of our programs. We have very strong programs. The Boys and Girls Club would come in and they would hire our staff. They would look at our existing policies and procedures, and they would hope to be able to keep the very, very favorable and for us unsustainable revenues and billings that families have been paying. Debbie and I both have reservations about that because why would they not slip into the same problem that we do? One of the things that we learned is very common in third-party providers is that they require everyone to apply for subsidy. The state of Vermont has just passed Act 76. Act 76 has expanded eligibility for subsidy to 400% over the poverty line, which is significant. And so asking families to apply for subsidy and making sure that we capture every subsidy dollar is a fabulous idea to be financially sustainable, and we don't have the capacity to do that. Did I miss
Do you have any
anything?
good information for us tonight?
I don't think so.
Okay. Questions for Brenda?
Is this the same program that someone spoke about?
Yeah. Yes.
However, I don't know I have not done that research, right? So I haven't gone on to, any one of us can, I haven't gone on to the Department of Children and Families website to review any programs that they might have, because I am confident that we wouldn't allow that type of program to happen in our schools. But that is a requirement of our new principals, and in these schools, all three of them are brand new principals.
So they would oversee it? Like, where,
They would,
who checks
no.
on performance and
Exactly.
complaints and issues?
Exactly.
Our principals would?
No.
No, boys and,
However, they're not going to ever be deaf, dumb, and blind. The program's in their school. If the program is not working out, if the supervision isn't there, they're going to be our first voice into the Boys and Girls Club that says these are the fixes that we need. I'm less afraid of that because the Boys and Girls Club isn't expecting to bring in stranger staff. They're expecting to hire our staff.
okay. So it's our staff who will be doing it?
Yeah, there's not a hidden market of childcare providers somewhere that they only know about.
They're hiding behind the bus drivers.
They're hiding with the bus drivers. So they're very hopeful that our staff would be still in the program.
So, right, so it's our staff, but they do the programming?
They would do the admin
They create
stuff.
it?
All of that.
Yep, and they handle all the billing and, okay.
So for our billing currently in our programs, I thought when you signed up for any kind of after-school program or summer stuff, that your payment had to be you had to pay when you signed up. Is that not the case?
No,
That is not the case.
Oh,
I know that,
okay,
my own experience.
okay. Because it's easier to say no at the beginning than it is in the middle.
Then to get behind, yes.
Yes.
But it's hard to say no to kids and families who need
Mhm.
programming.
Sure. Is that Brett's hand up?
Yep.
Okay. Well, it's in a weird spot, so it's like this,
know
it's
how
like
you
this
see
weird,
it.
Background. was
yeah. So, yeah, there you go. Okay, there you go. Go ahead, Brett.
Sorry, I'm in a hotel room, so I don't have a lot of control over that.
I don't want to know what you're doing. Okay.
Training is a work thing, yeah. So I guess, what's going on with the after-school fund? I mean, are we like on the verge of being insolvent? How dire is the situation would be my first question. And then second question, and maybe you answered it, I'll be honest, I can't hear that great, but is there intent to keep the same programs in the same locations? Or do we just, is that like a guidance thing and we don't actually get a say in that?
That's a really good question. No, you are not insolvent in the after-school program, but we're watching it. If we were to continue down this avenue, we would be. I haven't calculated how many years, but you are currently not at threat of that. We are looking at whether, so the LEAP program and the SOAR program at Neshabie, Lothrop LEAP, SOAR at Neshabie, solid and appropriately, whether we might need one classroom versus 2 or 3, there could be some argument, but definitely a market for a strong after-school program in both of those schools. Otter Creek Academy, less so. We have between 3 and 6 students. And so we would want to consider transporting them on a regular busing system from Otter Creek at Leicester to Neshabie and ask parents to pick up their children at the end of the day at Neshabie.
What's the cost savings? Is there any?
So that is negotiable with the Boys and Girls Club because they can set our family fee schedule in order to back into it. So their goal is not to lose money on our program. So we have shared our financials with them. And they haven't gotten to presenting us a financial proposal because I don't want to go down a road that you say I don't want us down. But they will give us a financial proposal that would say our subsidy share would be no more than this. So there would be a guarantee of that. And then if things started to not work out that way, there would be conversations about how we adjust programs and staffing to make that, and payment rates and parent collection more so to make that happen.
So are we paying them and then they pay our staff, or no?
They will pay they will hire the staff, they will pay the staff, they will collect the DCF subsidies, they will charge the families. And then at the end of the month, if they need $3,000, $6,000, $2,000, they'll bill us.
So can you tell me a little bit more about, you indicated that we might have some inefficiencies in our own programs as far as being overstaffed. I guess I want to know how you determined that and how we might be able to combat that if we wanted to keep our own programs.
So if we wanted to keep our own programs, we would need a strong director. And we would need a strong administrator who was willing to call families to make the payments that they're currently not making. And then the strong director would have to be the person who sends students home, sends staff home when we're overstaffed and watches those numbers.
Would that director also be in charge of calling families for payment? Do you
Usually
need
they are
both?
the first.
Okay.
And then, kind of the big guns come in, right? Like everyone's knowing who the big guns are, right?
That would be you, right?
No, it's Judy Pulsifer and Debbie Alexander. The big guns come in and.
Both of whom still aren't in those positions, Brenda.
That's right.
Exactly.
I'm only asking this because we had, in public comment, this came up, but there was some concern about the record of the Boys and Girls Club and whether the children would be safe. I think that was the implication. Either of you have any concerns about that?
We'll certainly look into it. And the
So-
information was shared.
So 2 things. Anytime you outsource a program, whether it's the food service program, whether it's transportation or whether it's childcare, that program is only as good and as strong as the staff in it. Our hope, and in our conversations with Boys and Girls Club, they would keep our staff. So we know we're starting at a strong place. And as that lady explained, these programs are really supervised by Department of Children and Family and Services, including people who call and say, hey, I noticed this, and make reports, as well as regular inspections. So again, kind of to Natalie's thing, I would expect that each principal on site isn't not paying attention to, seeing kids run unaccompanied down the hall. I would expect, just like during the school day, if they see kids running unaccompanied down the hall, that they are stepping in and then giving a call to someone saying, at the Boys and Girls Club, saying, something's not working, this director's not doing this, or this isn't happening. What is our immediate response to it? So I think it's not, the programs would still be physically in our buildings, so I would hope that we are paying attention to things before they ever get to a situation that was projected. We did also talk to Slate Valley and Greater Rutland, and they are so far very happy with their programs. I didn't do the research. I did not go on the website to look at whether I don't disbelieve what Ms. Wilcox said. I just didn't do that myself.
Are there other programs outside of the schools, though? Is that what she could be referring to?
She could be referring to any one of their other programs.
Right, that's what I'm wondering.
And those results could be from many years ago, because that stays in perpetuity.
And just looking at what the violations are, I mean.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So what's your pleasure?
What's the ask?
The ask is, do they continue, are we going to move our after-school and summer programs from our own programs to the Boys and Girls Club? That's the ask. So this summer, we would still run our own programs, but as of August, once we come back to school, and we don't have a director, that's the big issue. And collecting funds apparently is the other.
And 3 brand new principals.
And 3 brand new principals.
Stacy will be the most experienced.
It sounds like we don't really have much of a choice, do we? I mean, what would our other option be if we have no director?
So the other option would be for us to try to find a director again.
So exactly what does the director do? So just so I understand, director determines what they're going to do for programming at each of the, I don't know what the director.
So a lot of it is a matter of what they have for credentials.
Okay.
So we have a lot of great people in our programs that are doing phenomenal things. So that's not the biggest part of it. It's about the licensing piece, and you have to have very specific credentials in order to be a director. Now, a principal can be a director, but that's adding on, that's extending that day till 5:30 in order to really be, to do it with fidelity. So that it's not so much, all of our program staff are doing phenomenal things with the kids. It's more the licensing. They also have to keep up and make sure that we are in compliance with all the licensing, all of the sign-in sheets, all the things that Ms. Wilcox spoke about, like that director is making sure that we're in compliance in all of those places.
Right. They make sure that all of our staff are trained. And every child care provider or child care staff has a minimum of 15 hours worth of professional development every single year. That includes things from first aid to child CPR, as well as our regular policies and procedures and our systems, which they still would. They, like us, are mandatory reporters. So the director position, and the last person we had was wonderful, but she had literally no child care experience. So it's been really challenging to find someone with child care experience. So they do all of that administrative piece. They work with families to apply for DCF subsidy. They bill families, they bill DCF, and they staff the programs. And oftentimes, they end up being substitutes, at least at Neshabie. If there is a child who is dysregulated, they step in to help support that program and that student. I'm sure they do that at the other two programs as well.
Yeah, and there's a site, it's called BFIS, that you have to keep everything updated and.
Bright futures.
Yes, exactly.
I would support it. I would support getting a proposal, right? That's the next step is,
Contract for you to consider, yes.
yeah, and look at the contract and make sure that there's terms in there to ensure that they're following our policies and guidelines and.
Don't you need just concept
I
approval at
think
this point?
if, unless the majority are saying, I don't agree with Natalie. So,
I
yeah,
agree with
no.
Natalie. I think going ahead and getting the contract is,
Next step?
yes.
Thank you.
Wish we could find a director.
So you get to see even more of me.
All right, request of Fox Forest Summer Program to use Caverly due to construction at Barstow. So they are looking for a motion to approve the use of Caverly by the Fox Forest 2024 Summer Program as recommended by administration. So let's get the motion on the floor and then we can discuss.
I move to approve the use of Caverly by the Fox Forest.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, which one of you would like to discuss it? Brenda?
I am.
Okay.
So the, what is their name?
Fox Hollow.
Fox Hollow. They have too many F's in their names, so I'm
Wait, they're
sorry.
Fox Forest?
Fox Forest.
Fox
When did they
Forest.
change from Fox Hollow?
Fox
Have
Hollow's
they been
in there
Fox Forest
forever.
this whole year?
Oh, boy.
Yikes.
So they are a primarily outside preschool program that is universal pre-K program, which means they have a licensed preschool teacher. And they are, during the school year, we created a partnership with Barstow, and they are housed in Barstow.
Okay.
And Barstow has significant construction this summer that affects every part of the building because it's HVAC work. So you have to go into every room and every place. And so they asked us if we would consider letting them use Caverly during their summer program to be a secondary house. And again, the primary site. And again, most of their program is designed to be out in the forest, and Caverly, we know, is in the middle of the forest. So Kristen and I felt this was a reasonable request. We've had success at Barstow. We have some Pittsford, Barstow, and I think there might be a few out-of-district students that actually attend their school year program. We know and recognize that childcare is a really big challenge for families. So wanting to support childcare opportunities for our community, we wanted to bring it forward to you to see what you thought about them using the Caverly building.
So they currently lease Barstow, right? It says on their website.
They do. They pay $500 a year.
So they're just using a different space for the summer. So we already have a contract with them for using this space, which is not available. So we'd just be providing them a different space. That sounds reasonable to me.
So I think the catch is that there is some concern amongst Pittsford residents that this is a out of town program, although I am hearing that there are Pittsford students in it. So, and I also would indicate that all of our preschool programs are RNESU programs. They are not OVUU, they are not BUU, OVUU, they are RNESU. So under that, RNESU and OVUU and BUU are combined under RNESU, and it would make some sense that if, one of our programs can't run because of construction, that we would look to each other to see if we could help each other out.
I would also,
Well, not necessarily, I mean,
No, because it's just a facility request of OVU.
So that's why it's here. But I want to state that the pre-K programs are run by RNESU. And the fact that they pay $500 to Barstow for a year is minimal to nothing.
I'm thinking about a contract, right? Is there, do we have an obligation to provide them a space because it's not available to them, right? So we still have a contract obligation of space, and it would make sense to use a space within our district.
Doesn't our contract end in the end of the school year? Isn't it a one-year contract?
Well, it is, but we're already renewing it. If this board said no, we would go back to them and they would have to figure out something else for space. We didn't promise them, as Kristen said, the first contract ends on June 30th. The next contract starts July 1st.
Okay.
So
So we still have to do a new contract.
We still have to do a new contract.
I have a question. So under their deal with Barstow, the only thing that they pay Barstow is the $500 to use the space, right? So Barstow provides all the utilities and blah, 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 blah.
They
Correct?
do not clean the room, but everything else, yes. So they
Okay.
pay for the heat and electricity and the phone.
So would it make sense, because we are two separate districts, to have BUU pay OVUU for the space for those 3 months on an average for the
500 divided by 12.
No. I'm talking about the utilities. So BUU is always going to pay the utilities for the school. Do you see what I'm saying? So if the utilities, let's just say the utilities for the summer is $300, would BUU reimburse OVUU for the $300 of the utilities that we would not necessarily use otherwise? Because I think that's what I'm hearing from Pittsford, is that that is their school and they don't want anyone to use it unless they're going to pay for it.
And it's otherwise not in use over the summer?
That's true. Yeah, nobody uses that. Well, at least I don't think anybody uses it during the summer.
The teachers would need to get in there at some point to prepare their classrooms. I think that's another concern, how the classroom space will be.
It'd be one room, right?
There's just one room
It's just
in
one
there,
room
yeah.
they would choose.
And this goes, the program goes from when till when?
Well, it's
All summer?
Their program starts actually in June and ends in late August, but we've already told them that they have to be out in time for our program to come in and set up and be ready.
so then they would be able to come in and do their own stuff.
And we are expecting and anticipating that the construction at Barstow will be complete by, wow.
I know, I think he wants to, I think.
No, Colby did that so you'd see him.
Oh, okay. Well, I knew he'd have questions eventually, but we.
See the hand?
I'm like, wow, okay. So anyway, so finish your question, then we'll get.
So Brett just got giant.
I know, he did. So, but anyway, so you're saying that they were told they would have to be out in plenty of time to allow.
And
the
we know that the construction at Barstow will be done hopefully by September 1st. So towards the end of the summer is less of the disruption of the inside part of Barstow.
Right, so they would be able to move back in hopefully by the mid-August.
Yes.
Barring, okay.
Do we
So,
have any,
wait, sorry, Brett had his hand up,
Okay,
so,
okay,
and
okay.
he got really
How
huge
large
there,
he got?
so,
Yeah.
yeah. So we'll let him talk and then you
Okay,
can,
sure.
okay? All right, go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, so as the Pittsford rep, I have kind of a lot to say about this. So, it's tough, right? Because we do want to be good neighbors. What kind of maintenance would happen at Caverly over the summer that's not going to happen? Or what potential damage could happen to the building and who's going to cover that? you know, I have a lot more questions than answers, and frankly, this is not something that I could support as a Pittsford rep, because I don't think it really benefits Pittsford the way that it should. You know, we could ask a lot of questions like, why did the program initially want to work with Barstow versus OVUU? I mean, there's a lot of different conversations that could happen. You know, I don't see how this benefits our students. I actually think it actually disadvantages our students, because we don't know what's going to happen with the facility. It's not going to be maintained because there's, you know, it's being used all summer. What happens to the toys and the equipment and all the different pieces, the wear and tear? You know, I'm just going to state that, frankly, as the Pittsford rep here on this board, that I am against this.
No, I told Kevin he could talk next.
Go ahead.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, we're talking about 2 months of an outdoor program that's already existing, so, right, this isn't a new thing.
No, it's not new.
been existing in Barstow. So, that question, we don't need to worry about why it's at Barstow. It's in our district. If we were to sign a contract, right, we have a new contract, all of those things could be addressed. If there are any unreasonable maintenance expenses, anything, you know, whatever, we can put that in a contract to make them responsible for it. But I like the idea of what Lori said is, you know, we just pull from the Barstow budget any utilities, fees, anything that we may incur in Barstow, or in Caverly, and pull it out of that budget. And, I mean, I don't know.
There's Pittsford kids that go to that program.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to harm any child.
I'm sorry, Brett, I don't like your thing about that it's all Barstow kids, because it's not. It also does have Pittsford kids in it.
Okay, first of all, that's not what I said, right? Their agreement is with BUU, not with OVUU. And I understand that there are some students from Pittsford who attend that school. However, $500 a month hardly even covers expenses. If there was money coming in that would directly would benefit Caverly, I'd be all for this, right? But
why are we worried
Why
about
does
a
that have to
benefit or a
benefit?
profit?
What benefit is there? I'm waiting for someone to tell me what the benefit is for Caverly and the students in district who live here and go to Caverly to inconvenience the staff, to prevent us from doing our own summer maintenance. What is the benefit? Why would we even entertain it?
Okay, so first of all, do we have any maintenance scheduled for Caverly this year?
So every year we have summer maintenance schedule, but the biggest thing, and we've been focused on budget, so hasn't come back to you, I'm hoping it will come on the 21st, is finishing off a fence. So there would be no maintenance that we had planned to do to Caverly that would not happen with this arrangement.
Okay.
So that ticks that off.
So, right, and I guess the other thing is that all RNESU students are part of us, whether they're OVUU or BUU, and if we're not
using... This is a private program. What are we talking about? This isn't an RNESU program, it's private.
For kids in our district.
But for kids in our district.
Whether, because a parent chooses to send them to a private program, I don't care. That's up to them.
Right, so
but it's for our
all
children.
I want to know is,
all right,
what
Kevin,
is
you're
the
back.
financial benefit to Caverly? If they're going to be inconvenienced, I want to know that they're going to be somehow financially compensated. I haven't heard that.
We're not looking for a profit.
Well,
we
wait,
are a
stop.
nonprofit.
Okay,
right?
first of all,
Okay.
there is no inconvenience because, as Brenda said, teachers are going to be able to come in just like they always do in mid-August, so because they plan on being out by then. And if they were to pay the utilities for Caverly for those couple of months, then it's a win-win for all of those students. But I'm going to let Kevin say what he wants to say.
Thanks.
Sure.
This has already come up, but I wanted to focus on it, is there going to be an inconvenience to the Caverly teachers if this happens? And we've got a librarian sitting here, and I would want her input if we were going to be using the Neshabie Library for a program. And so I'm concerned with what the cavalry teachers may think, and if we had input from them.
I do think that the Caverly staff is not happy with this conversation. Yes, which it isn't quite as impassioned as Brett's, like what have you done for me lately sort of thing. But it is a concern about their materials, their toys. Will they have enough time to close up before Fox Forest comes in? Will they truly have enough time to, like, what will happen when they show up? Will it actually be cleaned? Like, they have a lot of logistical questions. So just to be super honest, yes, I think the Caverly staff doesn't love this. Is that a fair assessment? Yes.
But all of that can be addressed, is what I'm saying. If we say, if you'd like to use the space, these are our concerns, and these are what you're going to be responsible for.
It can be addressed in a contract.
Yeah.
I would just hate for our kids to not have a daycare program during the summer if we don't have a space for them.
Right. If we can have them pay for any toys that are broken, or make sure they're only in one room, and have a lot of conditions on the use. It's not free reign of the whole building.
Well, it probably is.
Well, it probably is.
It is
because
I've never been to the building.
Oh, yeah, okay. So it's a one room kind of.
It is.
Yes.
The office could be locked and separated,
Yeah.
but it's really an entrance, a bathroom, and a classroom.
Okay.
Nice size open classroom. They are a licensed program. It has to be licensed by DCF, so all the standard, they'd be responsible for, students and the number of ratios they have and their classes and their staffing. That would be their responsibility as a licensed program.
We could also tell them that they need to bring all of their own materials.
That's what I was
I
gonna
mean,
say.
yeah. I mean,
It's
that,
a private thing.
They
think.
don't currently use Barstow's materials. They're
outside.
using one room at
Right.
Barstow,
Well,
and it's
yeah.
all their stuff.
Well, right, so I would think that we would move our stuff and they would bring their stuff in.
And remember,
Mostly.
it's a forest program. Their goal is
To be outside.
outside.
I'm sorry, is it full day?
It is a
Yes.
full day program.
So they must come in for like snack and.
They come in quite a bit, actually, and if it's a rainy day, like they will use the building. And kids have to go to the bathroom. Little people won't hold it all day.
And they're responsible for cleaning it.
I don't know, that would have to be in their contract.
That's what I'm saying.
They are
We-
now.
They are now.
I mean, it seems like any of the concerns that people are voicing, either here or the staff at Caverly, should be put in some sort of a list so that they get addressed in the contract and things don't get forgotten.
And if they don't want to do those things, then we don't have them come.
Right, then they don't come.
Can we guarantee that that any money raised from this agreement goes directly to Caverly?
But
Is that something that we
there
can?
won't be any money
There's
raised,
no
that's
money.
the thing, there's no money raised. It's just a reimbursement of expenses.
Well, okay. Well, how about we charge rent for Caverly then, right? I mean,
No.
can we do $200 or $250 a month?
No,
Addition, so that.
they
Well,
pay,
then I love how everyone thinks that this is no big deal, and we can just get around it when it's not in their town. I mean, this is a frustrating thing to me. that we're-
Whiting does the same thing, we don't charge rent
I think
to,
that there's a way that this can be done, but we're not there yet. So maybe what I would recommend is that we table the discussion until we have more information.
Or we take a
Except
vote.
I think-
Forest also needs to know because they need
right,
to.
I think that I think we could probably come to a vote now if everybody's okay with that.
Can I please just ask a question about where all of the materials are gonna go? Because that basement's pretty dank at Caverly.
I highly doubt we'd put it there.
Where's it gonna get stored?
We could move it to Lothrop, there's lots of space there. So I don't think that's an issue, honestly.
Or just say, please don't touch anything.
Or replenish.
Small things can be locked in the office.
All right, so let's vote. I think we're ready to vote. I think we've all kind of, is everybody ready to vote?
Well, if the motion's contingent on a contract acceptable to the board, I'm ready to vote, otherwise I'm not.
Okay,
Did I make the motion? Do I can add?
you can add to it.
I don't know, is that something I should put in my, friendly, whatever?
So, yeah, pursuant to a negotiated contract that is
Acceptable to the board.
Accepted to the board?
To the
Yeah,
board and the
yeah.
parties involved, I don't know.
That could come back in the next 2 weeks, couldn't it? And then they'd know?
I mean, at this point, though, you don't even need a motion if you're delaying the
back
vote
2
to
weeks.
see the contract. Like, you're not actually
Okay.
approving anything.
Okay, well then, is that how you wanna,
Or you could,
Meaning that we would just delay the vote.
or you could say with the items, that the administration should create a contract with the items identified and then bring it back here.
yeah, I think I like that. I like the second portion better.
So, okay,
Sorry, Charlene.
so what I put was, a motion was made by Barbara, seconded by Natalie, to approve the use of Caverly by the Fox Forest 2024 summer program pursuant to a negotiated contract that is acceptable to all parties involved and recommended by the administration.
And
Well,
includes
covering
the
issues
conditions.
we talked about.
Well,
Well, it's a negotiated
Yeah, I think
contract, so
it's-
that
Yeah, that's in there,
approved
yeah.
by the board, so
Yeah.
we don't have to put in, I like it, but,
You wanna say all parties, or you wanna say the board, too? To make it very clear, because
okay.
this is an OVU facility
That's true.
request. Fox Hollow already has a contract with RMESU.
Okay.
okay. Yep, changed.
All right.
But their contract ends.
Yeah, but
But
still,
it's
we're
gonna
just
be-
going.
It's
like,
still
so-
gonna, it's already been renewed for
Oh.
next year. Okay. All right, so all those in favor of Barbara's motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Can you, would it be possible to get you to read that again? there was a lot of chatter and I couldn't
Sure,
quite
can you
hear
read it one more time, please?
Motion by Barbara, seconded by Natalie, to approve the use of Caverly by the Fox Forest 2024 summer program pursuant to a negotiated contract that is acceptable to the OVUU board and is recommended by the administration.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. All right, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, ayes have it. Thank you. All right, RNESU board update. So we just had an emergency meeting earlier tonight. As you all know, our superintendent candidate declined our offer, which makes us very sad because now we are kind of in a quandary. We are meeting again next week to discuss budget and also continue talking about what we're going to do for a superintendent moving forward. Did I miss anything? That's pretty much it. Did I miss anything? That's pretty much what we did. Okay. All right, other business for future consideration. So this is where I tell you that we need to have a joint meeting between BUU and OVUU to discuss the letter that went to the State Board of Ed regarding the configuration of the RNESU board. And we will be talking about it at our next meeting, just as us, that letter, but we do need to have a meeting with BUU. No, it can be after. Because BUU is going to have their own meeting. I think they've already pretty much had it. RNESU will be discussing it next week. And then at our next meeting on the 21st, we'll discuss it. And so I would like to do something after that. So please be thinking about your calendar. No,
Special meeting?
it's a special meeting. I know, and it's a crappy time of year, but it's gotta be done. We could potentially ask the, BUU board to join us remotely, at our meeting our first meeting in June, if you wanted to do that, if we started earlier. So that we didn't have to have a separate meeting, but that's up to you guys.
That would be easier for me.
Okay, so we'd probably start at 5 instead of 6, which may be a little bit of a hindrance.
What's the date of our first meeting in June?
I don't know.
The 4th?
The 4th, there you go.
Okay.
May the 4th be with you.
Although, Tuesdays are bad for most of our school board members, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
That's why they struggle to.
That's why they choose Monday? Okay. Oh, that's right, because Robin has something going on Tuesdays. So, well, let's plan on June 4th and let's see if they come up with an alternate date and we can discuss at our next meeting. Fair? Okay, the other thing I was going to mention was that Paul Lathrop sent me an email saying that because of baseball, he is not available for any Tuesday or Thursday meetings and wanted us to consider moving our meetings to Wednesday. I don't know if any of you want to entertain that idea. Baseball's over in a matter of a few weeks, and I think that if it's just practice, he should be able to show up. He must have someone to help him.
Well, the fire department has meeting on Wednesday. That's why I was glad you changed it to Tuesday.
Oh,
I was gonna miss most of the meetings.
Fair enough. So, I can just put it back out there to him that, I just don't know what everybody else's schedule is.
I would entertain it, but
Okay.
I'm okay if we don't.
Well, let's leave our next meeting as what's today, the 7th, 21st? And I will reach out to Paul and see how many more weeks he's got of baseball, and then we'll go from there.
How much are the assistant coaches for?
I know, well, that's kind of what my thought was, but I didn't say that to him
I don't know
yet.
if he's always available. My son's on that team, so.
Okay.
I didn't coach.
Well, I mean, I'm,
Already counts
it is
both.
what it is. Okay. Annual work plan,
Sorry,
sorry.
I was just gonna ask, is this the JV team or is this the?
Yes, JV.
So, isn't, Heitman? Ian Heitman? Oh.
I don't know. We'll find out. I'll talk to him and we'll go from there. Review board annual work plan. I don't think we'll have any PD. That may be one of the things we might want to think about cutting from our budget if there is any. So we'll move on from there. Superintendent informational report. Anything you want to tell us?
$1 million, right? The board PD?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
There's
We did it.
actually money in that.
Yeah, there is.
There's a decent amount.
Yeah. So we can
Reduced. There you go.
we just won't learn anything. There we go.
We need to know.
So just the calendar for next year.
Obviously, you know about the CLA.
No amount of teaching will get me to understand.
Barbara, I'm with you on that, so yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Let's let Kristen speak because we're already over 8 o'clock. So
Agreeing, come on, give us some love.
I know. I do appreciate that. Yes.
So
Would you like to sit down?
nothing much. The school calendar for next year is linked in there. Last day of school, just sort of informational. The budget defeat totals are in there for both OVU and BU. If you don't follow along with the bouncing ball, that is the Agency of Ed. The secretary was defeated at the Senate level, her confirmation, and the governor immediately appointed her interim. There are talks of sort of a lawsuit coming out of the legislature, so who knows? Certainly not a great thing for the interim secretary anyways. That's really it for me.
Well, that's well worth our money. Everybody talks about spending our money radically, but we'll call it a lawsuit. And
You want to be
spend a bunch of
superintendent
money
of schools?
not here.
Leave it to our fearless governor.
If we don't want her as Secretary of Ed, we certainly don't want her here as superintendent. Oh my goodness. That's it. You're shut off. All right. Our next meeting is Tuesday, May 21st at Neshabie School. Please note. Yeah, well, that's what this says.
I know, but that's the question. Is it?
Well, that's what this says.
That'd be nice, for me anyway.
Vicky's still on there, like we had talked about. Do you know?
All right. Well,
Is it for student voice stuff? Oh, okay.
All right. Well, then we'll be there, definitely.
It's in the library?
Yes. Well, we'll either be in the library or we'll be in the gym. Could
Colby,
be one or
tell
the
all
other.
your friends.
Yes. All right. We don't need executive session to.
Do you for Bird It?
Does that look, you don't have friends?
No, I don't think so. Not yet. What? You want to have it?
No, she said she didn't even read it.
Oh,
I need a new business.
There we
There's
go.
some savings right there.
There we
need
go.
to- All right.
All right. I will.
So we'll table that.
Barbara and I can do it jointly.
All right. Oh boy. Woo. There we go. There's our. All right. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:19.
Yes, ma'am.
Second. Or move.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.